Alright, hello and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we are doing a very highly requested video, as you can probably tell by what's on the desk in front of me. I'm finally doing a watch review. I feel like I am probably like the one runner on social media right now that has tried like so many different watches and has had my highs and lows, gripes, and good days and bad days with all of them. I'm here to talk about them because you guys have asked quite a lot to compare all of these, so I'm just going to dive right in. There's not really a structure to this video, and I'm not technologically minded as much as like I would love to create a really cool video like some people do on YouTube. I am literally just gonna go based off of like my experience, what I find is like a pro and a con for each of the watches, and like why I'm running with the watch that I currently am, and like sort of like why I have chosen one over the other, or just like, you know, yada yada yada. Let's get into the video and let's start by running through what watches I am reviewing today. So in terms of running, I have tried all of these watches for a numerous amount of runs, and so I feel like I can definitely chat about them in some more detail, but today I'm going to be comparing. For starters, the Apple Watch Ultra 2, I picked this up last autumn. I did buy this with my own money. For some reason, there is some speculation on social media that this was like sent to me by Apple, which I totally wish was, but it definitely wasn't. I will also be reviewing the Garmin Forerunner 935, which is definitely dead because at the moment I am not using it. It's a watch that I used for well over a year. Also, I will be reviewing the COROS Apex 2, and this is one from COROS, and it was the first watch that I tried out from COROS. And then lastly, I will be chatting about the COROS Pace 3. I have this along with a heart rate monitor strap, but I'm not going to include that in this video, but I'll chat about that when I do talk about this watch. Okay, so let's like circle back a year and a half, I'd say. I picked up the Garmin Forerunner 935 as sort of like my first serious running watch, I'd say. And I picked this up in, I think it was winter of 2021, early 2022. I bought this off of Facebook Marketplace for like 90 or 100 pounds. It was from someone that was a triathlete that had a lot of stuff that he was sort of getting rid of, and this was one of them. And this was like when I was sort of like just getting into marathon running. I had run a few marathons and I wanted something that was going to be more accurate, and I heard so many good things about Garmin, so I wanted to pick up the Garmin. And I picked this up also sort of like around the time that I started to follow proper training plans, and so it was really nice to kind of like know accurately where I was at running wise. And prior to this, I used to wear the Apple Watch Series 3, and the biggest reason that I switched to Garmin Forerunner 935 was that it got to a point in Apple's updates where the Series 3 was just not included because it's so old. So that is the main reason that I picked up the Garmin 935, but I also just heard from like everyone and their mother in the running world that the Garmin was the way to go. At the time, I didn't hear that much about COROS. I don't know if it was like as big of a brand as it is now, but I decided to go with Garmin and I really loved it. I think the battery life on this is incredible. Even like 2 weeks after I stopped using this, just like the battery life just like kept going, and I found that I had to charge it way less in comparison to my Apple Watch Series 3. So I feel like one of the biggest pros with a Garmin watch is the battery life. I also definitely had to spend a bit of time getting used to the Garmin app, which was something super different for me, and some runners may be super used to, but I had never done something like this before. And I actually didn't start to use the Garmin app until I really kind of started to think about coaching and think about like speed sessions, and like I think like my training plan that I was following for Berlin, I think that there was a training plan before I started coaching that had some speed workouts in them, and I wanted to see if I could use the app. And it was, not gonna lie, a bit confusing for me at first, and I feel like it was a little bit hard to navigate, and I had to watch a lot of like YouTube videos and things to kind of help me figure out like how to input a workout. But once I did, it was great. And once I started working with a coach, it was even better because those sessions that you get from your coach, you can put into your app in the Garmin app, and then you can then have it on your watch for the day. We'll say some cons that I found, and I think I'll just start kind of comparing here because like, again, this is not organized. I find that when you are using either when you're comparing the Garmin app versus the COROS app, the COROS app is so much easier to use for me in my sort of like user experience. And I know that like going from the Garmin to the COROS, I definitely had a little bit of like experience working with like a workout watch app of some sort. When it comes to inputting workouts, I'll put like a little B-roll shot on the screen here. Just like when you're inputting a workout, say like intervals on the track, you're able to set it so that you can set it for a certain amount of times to repeat, versus in the Garmin app, I found that you had to manually put each time that you wanted to repeat it, which was just like a little bit annoying and just kind of like a bit much in terms of like when I put a workout into my app, like I want it to be quick. I want it so I can just like put it in, have it ready for the next day. With Garmin, I just found that in the sort of year and a bit that I was using it, I definitely had some frustrations where like there were definitely some like track interval sessions and like repeats where like it's just like so much manual input into the Garmin app versus the COROS app I'm currently finding to be so much easier and just so much quicker. That being said, I think I also just to follow on the whole notion of like putting a workout into your app, Garmin, there were so many runs where like I would set it like literally even the night before or a few days before, and I would set it for the day because you can set it on for a calendar day. I would be outside and come outside to sort of like start my run, and this would not have the run in it, and like I would have to sort of like go back inside, check my Garmin app, like refresh it, re-input it, and there were so many runs where like it wasn't just ready to go. Versus COROS, I have not had an issue with that, which I find to be so nice because it's like I put it in and it's in. And I've never, I mean, knock on wood, I've had it less than a year, both of my COROS watches, but I've not had any issues thus far with the COROS app and just like having my workouts ready to go. So I feel like that's a big thing when I switched from Garmin to COROS that I found to be so much more helpful and just so much easier, especially when you are doing like a morning workout before work and you just need to get out the door, get that run in. I guess on the topic of like running workouts and inputting workouts, with the Ultra, I didn't have too much experience with that. And I'm going to also preface by saying that when I decided to purchase the Ultra 2, which is something that I have been wanting to do and was thinking about for a very long time and was definitely influenced by my partner Gabriel, I mostly saw this as like getting a lifestyle watch, because when it comes to battery life, when it comes to comparing the Apple to the Garmin to the COROS, the Apple Watch is going to be the worst. And even with it being the Ultra 2 and like the Ultra series is like renowned to have this incredible battery life, Gabriel and I both find he's got the Ultra. Not really much of a difference between the Ultra and the Ultra 2, but also like the battery life is not good. He's charging his watch almost every night. I charge it maybe like every other day. But when you compare this to like the COROS and the Garmin, like I probably charge my COROS and my Garmin when I am using it actively maybe once a week, and that's like me mostly just like wanting it to be like closer to full battery, or like, you know, not be like going out for a long run on like 20% battery, because like I'm this type of person where like if I go out for a run and my watch dies, I will have a meltdown because I will be like, now it's not gonna go into Strava, blah blah blah. But like I've heard of people going with the Garmin and the COROS for much longer periods of time. They're just like not charging it for like weeks on weeks, and like same with the COROS. Like both of them are so well renowned for their battery life, and I'm gonna put it on the screen if I can find statistics online between like what they claim as like their battery life for all the watches. But I just find that like having watches where you can just pick it up and just use it is so nice. And recently, because I've picked up the Ultra 2 as like a lifestyle watch, this is just what I tend to wear day to day, like my everyday, like when I'm not active, when I'm not running. I do prefer this for the gym. I'd say like that's probably my only pro versus these other watches, is like I've tested the Garmin and the COROS at the gym, and guys, it's just not good. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but I swear it, like the COROS and the Garmin do the same thing where it's like you've been on like the first set and it's like for like 40 reps or something, and it's just, to me, I don't know how accurate that is. I also know that the Apple Watch is not that accurate as well, but like I just find that this is just nicer to use for the gym, and there's so many different types of gym workouts that you can input into this. And I know that like, you know, COROS and Garmin are much more well known for like other activities such as like swimming, hiking, trail running, etc. So like more of like the triathlete Ironman versus anyone can really get the Apple Watch Ultra 2. Like they have like Pilates, they have swimming and diving and like all these things, and it is so cool to use. And I feel like I mostly just kind of bought this for myself as like a nice watch to have and to wear because I just really like it. I was wearing the Garmin for about a year and a half when I switched from the Series 3. So like this was my primary watch that I was wearing. And I feel like I initially just like did not like how notifications looked when it came on the Garmin. And I feel like I've only, because I've like, you know, had experience wearing the Apple Watch for a number of years throughout college, I feel like I just got so used to like how notifications look on Apple. I just kind of prefer how they look on Apple. So like if I want notifications, I just wanted it to be on the Apple Watch. And this sounds so picky, but just like in the year that I was wearing the Garmin watch, I just turned off all notifications. And like, I'm not gonna lie, initially like that was really nice. It was just nice not to have my watch, my wrist buzzing like every, you know, few minutes, every hour or whatever. But I feel like I've gotten to a point now where I really kind of miss having the notifications on my watch and like on my wrist. So I think that that was like also a primary driver in getting the Apple Watch Ultra 2, and just like not having to pull out my phone every time it buzzes, but just like quickly check my watch. I feel like there are also a number of things that I love about the Apple Watch Ultra 2 as like just an everyday lifestyle watch. Like these watches definitely do offer, but there are some things on the Apple Watch Ultra 2 that I definitely love that these watches don't offer. So one thing that I've loved to use for the Apple Watch Ultra 2 is to track my sleep, but also to set alarms in the morning. And I just find this to be so much nicer. I used to have one of those sunrise alarm clocks to like try and like slowly wake me up and not have like a jolting alarm. But this is so nice to have like sleeping on your wrist, not only to track your sleep, but also when the alarm does go off in the morning, it's just like the lightest vibration on your wrist. It's so nice. And like I've not looked into whether these watches do that, but like I feel like I really love that. I also love how you can like look at your sleep data on the Apple Health app. Again, like I feel like this is definitely more for like Apple users, and like if you're really into that sort of stuff of comparing your sleep and like sleep data. I know that people also will wear a completely separate watch like Whoop or the Oura Ring to track sleep, but I feel like there was once a time where I was wearing 2 watches on my wrist, and that is no more because I feel like that was a bit crazy. But I definitely just continue to love this primarily just for like overall health tracking. I think another thing that I'm very recently gotten into, the fact that the Apple Watch Ultra 2 can take your temperature. So linking that with my period tracking app is really nice. And I use the app Flow, and I did some work with them on Instagram, which was really cool. But they're a really great period tracking app, and I've heard such good things from other women about like how like your temperature connects to like your cycle syncing. I feel like I'm about to be 28 in a few weeks, and I feel like I still don't know too much about my body and like my fertility and all that sort of stuff, and like reproductive system. And so like I feel like in a way this has also just been like a really nice like lifestyle health watch to kind of like help me learn more about my body and just like track that. So I feel like that is like a huge plus for me. When I was wearing 2 watches, I definitely got some comments, and people were like why? Like literally, why would you do that? My coach was also like, why do I have 2 runs going into our coaching system? But that's sort of besides the point. I feel like something that is really great about the Apple Watch Ultra 2 when it comes to like lapping at marathons is that it's pretty accurate. And I feel like with all watches, like GPS gets so messed up in any race, but when it comes to lapping, and again, like I know that these watches also do manual lapping as well, and I'm gonna learn how to do lapping on the COROS for the London Marathon, but I found that lapping on the Apple Watch Ultra 2 for Chicago Marathon was so easy because only got like 3 buttons around the watch, so I knew exactly which button I had to hit each time just to lap, and it was just so easy to quickly do. Again, I'm so sure that like these are the same thing. It was just really nice to kind of like have that almost as like one watch where like this is like my lapping watch to kind of like track like lapping data versus like the other watch just to kind of compare and see what the data looked like. But in the end, Apple actually ended up showing me like side-by-side comparisons of like what the GPS thought was like mile by mile versus actually me lapping every time I passed a mile marker at the Chicago Marathon. It was really interesting. I did a whole video on like lapping and like how to use why you should use your watch to lap at big races like Chicago Marathon. So if you want to go and check that out, I'll have it linked in the show notes of the episode. But I feel like overall that sort of encapsulates my experience, my comments on the Apple Watch Ultra 2, and I never really got too much of a chance to try inputting workouts in. I found that like when I tried to do it on the watch itself, when you're creating a workout in the app, it was a little bit hard to try and do something like intervals where you're repeating something, or if you're like doing another set after the first set. And so I just found that like that I've never used this for any sort of intervals or track or any sort of like speed sessions. I've mostly always used this just for like running and tracking my running. Now I don't wear this at all for running. I just wear my COROS because I just find that I only want to wear one watch from now on. Let's talk about just overall experience between these three watches. I feel like if you follow me on social media, you would have seen every single session over last summer where I had so many gripes with the Garmin that I got to the point where I made a video starting out being like, I'm breaking up with Garmin, this is it. I'm officially breaking up with my Garmin. I know it was a bit dramatic, but I just felt so frustrated. And like, to be fair, I was running in Victoria Park and I've since gotten comments and people telling me even there the GPS gets messed up. I just found it to be so frustrating because like the pace would be so wildly off. And again, I bought this secondhand, so like it could totally come down to the amount of years that the owner previous to me had this for. But I just found that this was like so hard to use and like actually accurately know what pace I was going at. And again, like I've spoken about how like I'm much more trying to go on running to feel rather than relying on my watch. But it's still going to be frustrating every time when your watch is buzzing after like a set and telling you that like you're going like 2 minutes slower or something crazy. Like, it's not to say that COROS is perfect. I've definitely had a few sessions running through the city with the Apex 2 where the GPS is obviously going to be thrown off because you're running through central London. So like both watches are going to have this issue, like all watches will. But I think when it comes down to like intervals and like track intervals and like trying to like actually assess speed and like hit a certain pace, I'm going to say that I prefer the COROS. There's just been something about the Pace 3, and I'm still learning about like heart rate. I'm not going into like heart rate training, but I think that I'm just kind of using it more as like a nice to know factor in my running. And just like there's so much more data as well that comes from COROS that you never got with Garmin. Whilst Garmin gave you, you know, your post-run stats and like would show it in the app, I just find that the COROS has so much more data, and it's so interesting to me to kind of like learn more about the run that I literally just went on and just be like, you can do such a deep dive into the like level of detail, especially with the heart rate monitor strap. I think it just like helps give a much more accurate representation of your run and like the data that comes from your run. I feel like I've really been enjoying the COROS Pace 3. I have really loved learning more about data. I am like a bit of a health data nerd and like actually kind of work with some of that in my day job. It's just been so interesting. And I feel like another thing that I will say between, if you're comparing the COROS and the Garmin, the COROS you can choose from so many different watch faces in the app. The Garmin, you can't really do much, and there's not really as much like of fun options, if that makes sense. I feel like the COROS has like so many fun options, like depending on like what color you like, what race you're doing, like there's so many cool things. And so I've really been enjoying it. And they also obviously have so many different straps. The Garmin also came with different straps when I bought this secondhand. It used to be a white band that I used to have on this, if people who have been following me for a while remember. That got stained when I was dyeing my hair, which was a stupid thing, so I switched it to the black. But I feel like I've really been enjoying, like I love the like range of colors that come out in the COROS watches, and I've just really been loving both of them together. Thinking about like the weight of watches, obviously this is going to be the heaviest one. This is made out of titanium. Like, it is a pretty hefty watch. It's a pretty big screen as well. I will say it definitely takes some time getting used to. Again, I really like it, and I just love using it as like an everyday watch. When you're comparing the Garmin and the COROS, I think personally that the Pace 3 has just been a lot more comfortable on my wrist versus the Garmin. And I don't know if I really honestly, it could come down to literally like the straps and like how much more comfortable the COROS Pace 3 is. Some of these COROS like straps are just really nice, but the way that it kind of like sits on your wrist, because now that I've had the experience of like, you know, wearing some of these watches that have these like monitors on the back for like obviously measuring your heart rate, like the Apple Watch has it too, Garmin has it as well, but like obviously like there's stuff on the back of your watch, and I find that like with the COROS watches, they've just kind of sat a lot more comfortably. Like sometimes my Garmin would like pinch my wrist. I find that like with this, like I genuinely don't even feel like I'm wearing a watch with the Pace 3. Like it's so comfortable, it's so lightweight. Like when you're comparing the Apex 2 and the COROS Pace 3, the Apex 2 is a little bit heavier, like the build is different on the Apex 2 versus the Pace 3. It really kind of comes down to preference, but otherwise they are very similar in what they offer. And if I am wrong in that, I will post some more details on the screen. But I am very thankful to COROS for allowing me to try both watches. I think that they are so cool. I would be so interested to kind of like wear it more day to day just to see like what other data it pulls. I also find it really cool that like after say like a week of runs or like after a really hard session, like COROS will tell you like how exhausted you are, how like much energy that took, and if like how much recovery time you may need. I know that the Garmin does that as well, but I just find that like the COROS is kind of funnier in a way because it has like a little figure that like either be like happy and ready to go or like hunched over and just like absolutely tired. I just find that I so far have just been really enjoying the user experience of the COROS versus the Garmin. It just feels like the COROS, if I could like really put it into one word, it's just more fun. Like I just really love like everything that COROS offers, and I'm excited to continue to train with it for London Marathon because it's been so cool to use so far, and I'm excited to kind of like see what the data looks like in terms of like predictability with like marathon times and race times. Not used it too much yet to have like an accurate race prediction, but I know again that Garmin offers that as well. I would say that it's been a pretty positive experience as of yet, and this is kind of like my current watch that I'm using to run at the minute, and I'd love to kind of do more of like just I think I'm just gonna kind of chat a little bit more. I think after my London Marathon training block and like race day itself, I definitely want to do a dedicated video just on the Pace 3 and the heart rate monitor strap, because I find that it's been really cool to use and just like see what sort of data it offers, and I'd love to kind of look at how that looks like over time and how that data builds to then really iron out my profile in the COROS app as an athlete. So I'll definitely keep you guys posted. But yeah, in terms of current watch, this is the one that I'm using for running. Then I just wear my Apple Watch Ultra 2 day to day just for anything else other than running really. And yeah, I've been loving these two. I feel very fortunate to be able to try so many different watches and just sort of see how they work with running and my running. And so yeah, that is kind of the video in a nutshell. I feel like I tried to touch on as many points as I could and think about as many like different story points as I could, but I hope this review wasn't all over the place. I know that I am not super tech savvy, so I didn't really like have this ironed out into like as many categories as other people may have, but I hope that you enjoyed this and found it helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments of the video. Otherwise, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more running content and just everyday content from me as an American living in London and sharing the realities of not only my running and training, but also just everyday life and just fun adventures that I go on. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next video.